I'm absolutely delighted to welcome my next guest to the Empower podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Marietta Daly, I'm 29 and I am from Liverpool.
So, in your own words, from wherever you want to start, how would you describe the collection of your life events that's got you up to the current day with regards to health, psychological trauma, and how you deal with life and balance and well-being?
Yeah, so it's difficult, isn't it? Because we were talking before and I was saying like there's a lot that's happened in my life. I'm only 29, but there's a lot that I've experienced. And all the different life experience I've been through, from having, a brother who was born with a severe heart condition and spending a lot of time in Altai with him when he was a young baby and a young lad, in and out through his childhood. A lot of loss as well in my life when I was younger. My own struggles were kind of like mental health going through secondary school, which I hid very well. To where I am now, I'd say the past 7 to 8 months of my life, and the amount of loss I've had in the past 7 to 8 months of very, very close loved ones, I think I'd argue that that's what's had the most impact on my physical health, as you can hear, and also me mental health, more importantly. So I think if it's okay, can I talk about a little bit what's happened?
I'm just gonna I want you to speak about your experiences in whatever way comes naturally to you. Okay, so when you're ready.
Okay, so the past, I suppose when this really started then, so early 20s I had kind of struggles with my own physical health. I think that was the first time I personally had real struggles with my health.
Okay.
And I went through a period in my early 20s where I suffered a minor stroke, which was very scary because obviously in my early 20s it's not something that you hear about.
No.
It's not something your friends talk about. It's something that has happened in the family a lot. There's a history, but certainly not in the early 20s. And then also the kind of stigma and shame around that, because it was not like a full-blown stroke,
right,
like that me aunties experienced or my granddad's experienced. I kind of felt like I couldn't talk about it with certain people because I almost felt like a fraud. But there was definite impacts that I still feel today from that, the burnout I felt at the time, and that led to kind of me the first impact of like being in a workplace and being in a work role and your health interfering with your ability to do your job.
Yeah.
That was my first kind of experience of like physical health impacting my mental health and my day-to-day functioning. And then obviously through the years after that, I've then struggled to kind of get back to like full capacity, or what I'd see my full capacity as. Memory loss at times, forgetting people names and faces. I'm really
that
bad
must have been
with.
so stressful though.
Yeah, it was. And the role I was in at the time was a very high functioning, fast paced environment, working with people who had committed crimes, and you could really let any vulnerabilities of yourself, physical health, mental health, show. But it got to a point where I couldn't hide it anymore because of what I'd gone through, and it led to me having to take time off work, and that in turn impacted my mental health.
So just for me to get it clear, you were 20?
21, 22 at the time I was, yeah.
Okay, so 21, 22. You were working in that really stressful environment.
Yeah.
And you had the stroke. It was a mild stroke, but it was a stroke.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't have any physical clinical knowledge. Is a stroke something that can be brought on by the stress?
Okay. Yeah. And I think as well, like, stress at the time, I didn't really understand just how much of an impact stress can have on your physical health. I knew about your mental health. At that time, I'd only been in university before that. So I'd known the stress of like deadlines and dissertations, but that was like normal stress.
Familiar to you.
Familiar to me, yeah. Whereas because this is my first proper role, I'd say, in the working world post-university, I couldn't recognise that it was the stress of the job.
Right.
And external factors. I also had a lot of loss at that time in my personal life.
So what was family life like? Because I know you've got a sister, haven't you? And
Yeah.
a brother.
So family life, immediate family life was brilliant. My mum and dad were in good health. Dad was on the mend, so Dad had had a heart attack a couple of years before, but Dad was doing really good at this time. My mum had also had a stroke years previous, but again, she was doing well. So in terms of my immediate family at that time, they were fine.
Right.
I did lose two of my nan's sisters, who obviously we've grew up calling them aunties at the time. But I still felt like I was okay, like, and I was functioning.
Yeah.
But actually, when I look back now, I was really struggling at the time in work.
Right.
And I probably should have spoke up a little bit sooner. But it's not the done thing, you know.
Yeah.
When you're seeing people who've been in that role doing a lot more, and they've been doing it for many years,
Yeah.
I felt embarrassed to go to my manager and be like, I'm not struggling, I'm not coping well here, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I could do that.
feel like it was a personal, like you should have been able
Yeah.
to cope with all of these things, and you put that pressure on yourself.
Yeah. And I think as well, because when we were younger, and one of my brothers was so poorly, this is not what my mum and dad ever made us feel, but it was kind of just like a mutual feeling between, like, I'd say the sisters and the brothers, was that because he was so poorly and we seen how ill he was at times,
Yeah.
I felt like nothing that I was feeling or going through or feeling sick was as bad as that. Right. Because no matter how bad I felt, at least I wasn't as poorly as what my brother was. Does that make sense?
It does. You try to keep it in and be like, I don't want to cause a bother because it's not on the same level.
Yeah, completely, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I did. I bottled up a lot of stress. So, yeah, that led to me having the mini stroke. And that was the first real taste I got for work and external factors and just even everyday life stresses, if they build up, how they can really, really impact your physical health and your mental health. Yeah. Which leads us to kind of like this last 7-8 months where I've had a period of profound loss. Mm-hmm. But interestingly, with me education, my background now and the roles that I've been doing in the past few years and working in mental health, I've got a much more developed vocabulary in knowing what certain symptoms mean clinically, you know, diagnoses for mental health. But even having that knowledge, that experience, that education, I've still not felt able to reach out for psychological support myself yet.
As you, as a woman.
Yeah.
So as a professional, you can easily support those people, and 100%. I've worked with you and know how excellent you are. But as the woman, mm-hmm. you haven't felt able to invest that quality that you give to other people into you and your health.
100%. Okay. 100%. And as I said before, the main driver for me to want to do this podcast is to share that, you know, you can be high functioning, you can work a 9-to-5 job, you can be the best daughter, the best partner, and go through an absolutely horrific time. But I'm constantly in the feeling like I need to care for people. Yeah. And actually now I'm coming out the other side of the 7-8 months, I'm starting to realise that no, actually I've gone through a lot and I need to start putting myself first. Yeah. And I suppose this is one of the ways that I'm doing that, is starting to actually talk about the past 7-8 months and the impact
and
it's
that
had.
It's okay to give people an opportunity to support themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, whereas you would step in and do things, you're still there, but you've got to also manage your own health, otherwise you can't be the everything that you've always been. Yeah. And that you're a priority in all of that as well. Yeah. So when you were saying about the last few months, and I know it's very current and it's still very raw. Yeah. Do you want to talk about whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, yeah.
About that.
So it started back in July 2023. Me and my partner Tom got engaged, and we've been together roughly 10 years, and was on this major high, like so excited for life, felt like everything was coming together. And then it must have been 5 to 6 weeks later, Tom's father got a cancer diagnosis. And I won't go into the ins and outs just out of respect to the family, because it is still so raw, but it was a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, which completely just pulled the rug.
And your relationship with him was...
We're quite close. Lee had been in my life for over 10 years. I used to go round to house parties there when I was 16. And I couldn't fathom going from being on this epic high of being engaged and thinking of like what life's going to look like in the next 5-10 years within the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That was shattered, like completely shattered. So yeah, that meant then another 12 months of watching someone you love go through a horrific...
And being unable to...
help. Completely unable to help. Didn't matter how skilled I was, didn't matter how empathetic I was, didn't matter how many practical things we could do to help. You're just completely powerless in it, and you just... Not only watching someone you love actually go through the diagnosis themselves and watching that battle, but the people you love even around them, you know, Tom, his sister, his mum, and not knowing how to be, like, it really changed the dynamic of our little family, you know. So we had 12 months of watching Lee battle, and yeah, he was just he was incredible. And then after that, we lost him last August, and then 9 days later, when we were planning the funeral for Lee, my nan collapsed, my mum's mum, and she got took to hospital, and we thought it was just a water infection, and then she got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and I became a carer overnight, literally overnight, because my mum is very capable, and she's heart of gold, like very charitable, amazing. But when it comes to like her own mum wasn't in the best health to care for me nan hands on, which is what she needed.
So you stepped in, yeah.
So me and me twin sister stepped in, and one of my other cousins, and so then that became instant overnight carer. At the same time, trying to further my career, trying to get
Which
my
looks
qualification.
like, at this time, like,
Yes.
what does that look like?
And now I've got through that year, and I'm a qualified psychological wellbeing
So
practitioner.
you were doing a master's?
Yeah.
Your second
Yeah.
master's?
Yeah, so like a postgraduate diploma, it's classed as, but yeah, it certainly did feel like a second master's. But yeah, trying to navigate that at the same time as being a carer. So like, you know, after losing Lee, mentally was in a really bad place, struggling. Physically thought I was tired. Didn't actually realise what exhaustion was until...
And partner to Tom as well?
And partner to Tom, like trying to support me partner through grief, you know.
And 12 months before, you were a young girl who is looking forward to getting married and planning that,
Yeah.
and then overnight, like, that isn't the main thing at the moment.
Yeah.
That's been derailed by all of these other life events.
Yeah. And it was hard, like, being a carer for me nan, but also it's like I have to take accountability in terms of like me and my sister stepped up and chose to do that because Nan had given us all our life, and at that point we didn't want carers in, Nan didn't want carers in. Nan also didn't know a diagnosis.
Right.
She'd had cancer twice in previous years, so she'd had a conversation with the doctor years earlier to say, if I ever get cancer again, I don't want to know the diagnosis, I don't want to know the prognosis, I don't want any treatment. And she made her wishes very well known to the doctor, which we're thankful for. But it also meant that we kind of had to create like a fake world around her where we knew she was really deteriorating quickly. And deep down, like Katie, she probably knew herself, but it was never vocalised.
Yeah,
you know,
she didn't need to have those words
No.
like in that space. She just like
She just
had
wanted
that love
normality.
around her. Yeah.
Yeah.
How lovely.
Yeah. So then that was another 3 months of caring for Nan, and then we eventually lost me Nan in December. So not even 4 months after losing Lee, then lost me Nan over Christmas. And then dealing with that and dealing with the physical exhaustion after that, I think that's where my physical health really took.
How on earth did you
Pummel.
manage to do all of those roles? Like, how did you did you, from a psychological point of view, like, you must have gone well past clinical burnout. You must have been somewhere else, just autopilot. I don't know. What was it?
Definitely autopilot. I think my mum is a very strong role model in terms of, like, we watched what happened with our older brother when he was younger, and mum and dad were both like, get through it and get on with it, like that's the only way to survive. So that's kind of instilled into to us, I think. And I think for me as well, just being like, at least if you carry on and you keep going until these people aren't here anymore, you know that you've done everything for them. So I was kind of doing that for myself as well, to be like, you've done what you can to support them, you know.
Can I just ask there, because I totally get that. I don't know if it's a cultural thing, if it's, I don't know what creates that mindset, but do you feel like, or have you ever thought that your part of your purpose or your perspective on the value of life is knowing that you've got the strength and the skills and the resources to be of great help to other people? So do you feel like that's almost like a duty bound thing, that this is where I step in because I can do this?
Yeah, I think I do. I think there was, I think certainly in Lee's passing in the final few days, it was so, it was such a learning lesson in that you sat in a hospital room and I'm watching someone I love deteriorate, meaning Lee.
Yeah.
But then you're looking around at the people closest to him and they're all struggling.
Yeah.
And they're just focusing on getting through each moment and being there for the dad and being there for the partner. But on the last few days, Lee's wider family came. So Lee has an older father who's in his 90s, and Lee had kept that diagnosis from his dad. He made the decision to not tell him because he didn't want to burden his dad, like, which shows just how amazing of a man Lee is and was. But it was there was times where it was like you're watching people completely at the end of the tether and physically were exhausted, and so I felt like I had no other choice but to be switched on, you know, like getting the nurse to come in and help, or I don't know, like saying, come on, should we go for tea now, like let's go get some fresh air, just little things like that, because they didn't have capacity to do it.
So did you have to leave your emotional needs, do you think, to step into doing what you knew you had the skills to do for other people?
Yeah, I think definitely with Lee, with me nan, with me nan, it was more just like that definitely felt like a duty, like I had to do it because nan and granddad had give us everything in life. They did everything for us, like they were the best. And so it was just never even an option of, if we're not getting carers, then I'm caring for me nan.
Yeah.
Because she needed it, and you're not going to leave someone you love to struggle. But I look back now and there's situations that I was exposed to, more so around me now, I think, where there were capable adults much older than me who also could have intervene more.
Yeah.
Not with regards to Lee. Lee had a very good support system around him.
Yeah.
And his wife and his kids were, I could never ever fault them, they were incredible. But I think when it come to me nan, my immediate support network at the time, I feel like now looking back, could have and should have protected me a little bit more, knowing that I was also in the midst of grief, you know. And I don't hold that against them, you know. They were going through their own thought processes of feelings and just getting through.
Able.
Yeah.
I think what I've learned about you in the time that I've known you is that you're a very capable, able, strong, dynamic, motivated, loving, helpful person. Everyone who meets you knows that you've got this energy. But I think what's easy to forget as well, that you are only 29, is it now? You don't come across as a 29-year-old, you come across as a woman who's lived a long life, who's very wise.
Yeah.
And I think that can make a lot of people feel very safe, and a lot of people need somebody like that when they don't feel able or confident to do things themselves. You're the type of person that everybody needs, where you can go, well, I do have the skill set, and you are protective, but then also you're kind of leaving yourself behind a little bit, because you're demonstrating that you are capable and able, and people will kind of hold on to that because it's such a source of comfort.